Human history loves to celebrate technological evolution. We remember the great inventions, the steam engine, electricity, internet, artificial intelligence. These breakthroughs fill our textbooks. They define eras. But there is another kind of evolution shaping our future. The one rarely appears in history books. It does not begin in factories. It does not begin in tech companies, but it begins much earlier, and it begins in classrooms. Because every system that we design, every technology that we develop, so that is first imagined in human mind, and that human mind learns to think somewhere. So here is very important insight that changed the way I think about the technology. Technology does not design itself. People design technologies. Every engineer, every innovator, every designer begins the journey in classrooms, which means something very important. It is the most important evolution, and it is not written in the systems at all. It may be written in how we learn to think, how we educate minds, and it leads to a deeper question about the sustainability, because sustainability is framed as a technological problem. Build greener energy, design smarter systems, and all of that matters. But real challenge is not only designing the sustainable systems, but educating the minds which design these systems. I started noticing this pattern when I was dealing with engineering students, because engineering students in design courses solve complex technical problems. They optimize for performance, efficiency, and cost, and often they do it brilliantly. But one day, in my design discussion, I asked a simple question. How many of you have thought about the environmental impact of materials you have used in your designs? The room became very quiet. It did not because student did not care, but because such type of questions are rarely part of design process. Engineers are trained to optimize systems, and they are not always encouraged to ask questions about greater consequences of that design on the environment. And that moment, a very important thought began about technical educations. In technical education, traditionally we design systems that work. Then we evolved to design systems that work efficiently. And we rarely thought about designing the system responsibly. But in the present century, there are challenges which cannot be solved by the traditional design problems. So we need to design systems which work responsibly within the limits of our planet. An evolution which is not mentioned in patents or product launches, but in quieter places, in the questions we ask to the students, in the values we embed in their education, in the way engineers are taught to think, how to learn. Because when thinking evolves, the technology they develop, that technology evolves. This introduced a very simple and powerful framework. For many years, we used to think that sustainability leads in this format, that better systems leads us to sustainable future. But in reality, the sequence is different. So it begins much early with educated minds, because educated minds leads to responsible design, and the responsible design leads to sustainable systems. And we have already begun to see this shift in emerging approaches in engineering design. For example, in our research on antenna design, we decided to use 3D printing and alternate materials to design systems with reduced fabrication complexity and having better sustainable issues. So the question was not to get the more performance, but the question was, can we get the same performance with fewer resources? And when this thinking starts in our design process, so the design is not only efficient, but it becomes responsible. So also the same shift can be seen in artificial intelligence used in manufacturing or engineering design. AI nowadays can optimize faster than any engineer can do, but objectives are not set by the AI. Engineers set the objectives. If the objective is to enhance the performance, AI gives us faster systems. But if the objective is resource efficiency and sustainability, then the design evolves itself. So technology reflects thinking behind its design. So it's where the education becomes incredibly important. Nowadays, classrooms shape thinking, which shapes technology. So think about it, that classroom can be one of the most scalable infrastructure for sustainability that we have. One engineer can design one system, but one teacher can shape hundreds of engineers, and those engineers design thousands of systems. With digital learning platforms, these ideas reach learners and educators at a pace never possible before. So when the education evolves, the impact multiplies across industries and generations. So the responsible thinking will lead to technological changes. And when we look at technological evolution, we celebrate inventions, but there is another invention, there is another transformation which happens much earlier, and that invention shapes how the engineers learn to think. And when thinking evolves, the technologies evolve. Today's evolutions are happening inside classrooms. An evolution in how engineers ask questions, not only how a system can perform better, but also what resources does it consume, what impact does it leave behind, and can it be designed more responsibly. When these questions enter education, powerful change begins, and the technology reflects to show the new mindset. Innovation becomes more faster, more smarter, and also more thoughtful, more responsible, and more sustainable. Because the sustainable future cannot be developed by only developing smarter technologies. It can be developed by the minds, the educated minds, and which think responsibly and with long-term vision. So when we look at the technological evolution, we should also look at where this actually begins, not in factories, not in tech companies, but in classrooms, because sustainable evolution begins there. Thank you.